So Super Rugby round 7, Friday games, done and dusted. Big victories for the Chiefs and the Rebels, one by points, one just in terms of importance. Yeah, I can still see after watching those bright green Highlanders jerseys for 80 minutes, they were special. I'm probably going to have to do a video on away jerseys. I did one about the home jerseys. I ranked my favorites to my least favorites. I'm probably going to have to do an away jerseys one just to get that Highlanders away jersey in there somewhere, because yeah, I mean, my eyes eventually adjusted to that jersey, but wow, that was a really bright green. So yeah, Chiefs take that first game 27-22. It was a really classic ding-dong New Zealand conference battle. The lead changed 4 times, which kind of shows you just how the match was kind of ebbing and flowing. Neither team was really able to get ahead and stay ahead. The Chiefs were ahead at 80 minutes, and they kicked the ball out. But if it had gone 85, you never know. The Highlanders were pushing, so it was a good victory for them. Important to hold that home record. Important bonus point for the Highlanders. They didn't get one in their match last week, so if nothing else, they'll take that out of this game. Although it was a pretty good game, I still feel like there were probably more errors than we're used to seeing. So in these New Zealand conference games, we often expect the skill level or the mistakes to be low, the skill level to be high, but there were more handling errors than we probably would have expected. Lineouts were a bit scrappy, and just some poor kicking out on the full from the restart once, and just from general play. So that kind of stuff, it didn't seem like the weather should have had an effect. It seemed fine, but at times it looked like they were playing with a wet ball. Maybe it was a bit of dew, I don't know. So yeah, it was still a good game. It's not to say it wasn't a good game, but yeah, just some areas of the game that were a bit kind of not as clinical as they could have been. The Chiefs probably had it in the first half. You could really feel them putting on a lot of territory and possession dominance, but I mean, the Highlanders play a style of game that you can't really look at the stats and get a kind of feel for it. But the Highlanders did look better in the second half. Whatever they changed at half time, holding the ball a bit more, it seemed to pay dividends for them when they came back into it. But yeah, it's strange that the travel didn't really seem to affect the Chiefs. So they were supposed to be the ones, maybe in the final 10-20 minutes, getting a bit tired after that 12-hour flight back from Japan. I didn't notice it. They looked fine. So credit to their conditioning team for keeping the guys, fit and healthy, raring to go. It was interesting that the Chiefs took the threes early on when they had some penalties. They built that scoreboard pressure early, and I mean, in the end, it turns out to be a kick of a penalty and a conversion that's the difference in the game. So 3 tries apiece. I've kind of been a bit critical of some New Zealand teams for only wanting to go for the jugular, but sometimes it's smart to build threes, and the Chiefs saw that because the Highlanders' defense is really good, and when they had chances early on, they just took a few threes. So I feel like that was smart, especially early on, when the gaps probably aren't there because everyone's still pretty fresh. The Highlanders did well because Sopoaga was injured really early on in the game. I think he went off after I forget how many minutes it was, like 6 minutes or something like that. So yeah, Fletcher Smith came on. Yeah, 6 minutes. Fletcher Smith came on and he looked fine. Like, you didn't really notice too much that Sopoaga was gone. He kicked well. Didn't see him maybe run the ball as much, but Sopoaga is not a huge runner of the ball. So yeah, I thought he did well. And Thompson continues to impress. He was at 12 this game. I think he moved out to 13 once the subs were made. But yeah, he looks really good. I think if he keeps on this path, he's going to go places for sure. Damien McKenzie at 10. He does some really brilliant things, but then at times, like one of the Highlanders tries was from him kicking the ball into his own guy. It looked like the commentators initially thought it was a charge down, but he kicked the ball into his own guy. It bounced back, and the Highlanders ended up scoring. Like that kind of thing, it's just, just a bit poor. So he's still got some development to go for sure, but I mean, for a guy who's not played a lot of Super Rugby at 10, he's looking alright. I think there's potential for him to get a lot better there as well. So yeah, I mean, to get one over the Highlanders for him will do him a lot of good. At the end of the day, it's a pretty big result for the Chiefs to kind of stay in this race with the Hurricanes, who are just flying, and the Crusaders, who are always putting the pressure on. So it's the Highlanders that fall a step back. But for the Highlanders, it's no disgrace to go to a New Zealand team, travelling and to lose. I mean, to get a bonus point, I think they were doing pretty well. They might have wanted to get more just with the travel and the injuries to the Chiefs, but I mean, there's no easy games. So yeah, if nothing else, they got the bonus point. They did have the chances to win it though. So I think at the meeting on Monday, they'll be pretty disappointed that they didn't push on just to maybe sneak a win. The Chiefs go on to play the Blues at home next week. So if anything, it probably gets a bit easier. And for the Highlanders, they get their second bye. So the scheduling can be a bit funny sometimes. The teams get the byes at funny times. But yeah, we'll see how they go. See if they rejig things. I get the feeling, I haven't looked at their full schedule for a while, but they must be going to have a few games on the trot if they've already had 2 byes out of the way early. Now the second game, the Rebels against the Hurricanes. I mean, as a neutral going into this one, I was hoping the Rebels would do well, because it's good for the competition and it's good for the Aussie Conference to be decent. It'd be nice for the Rebels to get a win. I'm sure it would have made the newspaper in Melbourne instead of all the AFL stuff, maybe. Or if they weren't going to win, I at least wanted them to kind of get close, be competitive, maybe get a bonus point. I didn't want them to get blown away, but they got a hiding. 50 points to 19, 7 tries to 1. It's it's not a good look for the Rebels. It's kind of definitely back down to earth after that result. So yeah, it's not a good look. It was a high intensity game for about 30 minutes, and then it was pretty much all the Canes. The Rebels didn't have much answer for them for the rest of that game. They talked after the game about knowing that they had the bye coming up, the Rebels, so maybe they went out a bit harder than they would have normally. And I think maybe that showed in that, like, if you've ever watched boxing and you've seen one of those guys who just swings all early and then just gets gassed, the Rebels looked a bit gassed for much of that game and started making poor decisions, poor errors. They just couldn't get any territory or possession, giving away silly penalties, eventually got a yellow card, and it was just kind of further down the mine for them. The turning point was probably, I know it's been talked about a lot, but that Debrasini one where he didn't catch the ball and just take it over the line. If you ever played like sports as a child, you've always been taught by your coaches that if there's like a variable, you do whatever you can to not allow that variable to have a poor consequence for you, whether it's like catching a ball near the sideline and just taking it out in rugby, or putting your leg down to stop the ball going past you in cricket as a fielder, or in soccer, if you're not sure if the ball's gonna go over the line before the attacker gets there, you just kick the damn thing out. Like, there's so many examples of that, and maybe Debrasini just misjudged it. He thought it was going to go out, but it didn't go out, and it took a wicked bounce, and it went to Lamb, who ended up getting 4 tries. I mean, that's the kind of thing you can't give the Hurricanes. And they just kicked the penalty, so they had been down, and then that brought them within a point. So it was a massive momentum shift, and the Rebels never really recovered from that. So yeah, I mean, he'll feel pretty gutted about it. But it's just one of those, as a coach, it's one of those schoolboy things that it's like, man, like if he caught that and just run it over the line, sure, the Hurricanes get the ball like 5 meters in the Rebels' half, but nobody's going to remember that. You know what I mean? It just becomes another play. So Yeah, I mean, there was a lot else that went wrong, but that was one kind of key moment. But for the Hurricanes, they look slick. I mean, they were on to most of the things. They kind of weathered that early storm fairly well from the Rebels. The Rebels were kicking goals, like they only got the one try, so most of those points are penalties from Debrasini's boot. And yeah, they played smart. They used like cross kicks when they had to. They took the ball wide when they had to. They yeah, had a dominant scrum. So yeah, it was surprising a bit just how much dominance they got early on. Yeah, the Canes looked rattled kind of briefly, but it was only for a very short time. It didn't take them. I guess that's just that golfing kind of experience as a top team that maybe there's the difference between the Rebels and the Hurricanes at the moment. And Dave Wessels kind of mentioned it in the press conference that, you know, they've not played that many games together as a team, and there's still a lot they need to work on. Whereas the Hurricanes they're used to winning. They win, I think it was 80% of their games, they said. So yeah, it's not surprising that they came back into it. So yeah, for the Rebels, it's kind of back to the drawing board a bit. I mean, they'll wanna settle down over this bye period that they've got and just look at the things that they did wrong, because this was their first true test this season, and that they failed it pretty badly. But if they take their learnings, there's definitely potential for them to move on and get better. For the Canes, it's just like keep on keeping on, man. They got the composure, they've got the skills, they got the talent. I mean, they've got Lamb who's getting tries for fun. Laumapi still looks strong. So they're going to be there or thereabouts pretty much all season, I would imagine. If Chris Boyd wants to get one more title before he goes overseas, he's looking pretty good about it at the moment. And yeah, it was 42 unanswered points. It's the second time the Rebels have done this season where they've just let in, I can't remember how many it was against the Waratahs, maybe 38, where they've just let in a flood of points and not had any answer. There was one time when the Rebels turned down 3 in this game. I know they were already like 15 or 20 points behind, but it might have just kind of stemmed the flow a bit. But yeah, Hurricanes just class all round. They go on to face the Sharks next week in Napier. So if you're the Sharks, kind of look out, because a Hurricane's coming and it's looking pretty nasty. All right, what did you guys think of the games? Did you tip these two results? I think, like I said, this one was at evens before the game, and the Hurricanes were tipped to win, but not by that much. So yeah, interesting. And yeah, we've got some more games tonight. I think I'll be going to the Sharks Blues game. So if the Blues manage to stuff this one up, I'll have a really sour look on my face. But anyway, that's for tonight. I'll talk to you guys again soon.